because I listen to the takes and I'm just like, I sound like a crazed man.
Oh, I thought you were going to say because you got your own microphone today.
Hey, I have a new microphone. Is this working?
Oh, yeah, you're live. You see that big?
Yeah.
Whoosh? Yeah.
Is that the clapping?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in.
Hey, we're back. This is Steve Peterson.
And Jack Hinkle.
We're back in our studio C202.
Oh, that is the room, isn't it? And we finally figured out, because so many people said, why are you so quiet on Spotify? Well, it's because we kind of had one mic. So now we got two. And I feel like we're like on a radio station now because you and I are both kind of talking soft because we got the microphones right in front of us.
Maybe we should start a GoFundMe.
For more gear?
Yeah. That's kind of selfish, though. I didn't do this for the fame and glory.
Well, I'm doing it for the money.
How's that working out?
Very poorly. But that's okay. We have a good time doing this stuff. That's good.
It's fun.
Yep. Hey, we're back. We're on the final stretch of school. We got 4 weeks left. We're halfway through the first week, and then it's Christmas break. So we are in the thick of holiday concert preparation here at Concord High School.
Christmas spectacular.
Impressive.
Super sounding tunes. So, we have Christmas Spectacular, which is grades 9 through 12, everybody that can sing, dance, or play an instrument on stage. And we do a show that was modeled off a Radio City Music Hall many, many, many years ago.
Yep.
But first half, Santa, Rudolph, Snowmen,
Fun.
Parade of the Wooden Soldiers, classic White Christmas, dancers, jazz bands, whole thing.
Yep. Second half gets a little more
Solemn, sacred.
solemn, and we
visit the sounds of the season.
Oh yeah, it's a good time.
And,
3 shows, 2 Saturday, 1 Sunday, plus a 4th show matinee for our elementary and intermediate school students to get bussed over, and we take the kids out of some school time to do that. It's always fun. And once that's done, that's kind of when we get to go for a little.
And we have 2 weeks till Christmas break.
Yay! And then we're in concert band mode. So that's what we're doing.
It seems
right
like
now.
the energy, it's totally different with these microphones.
Well, because we're like quieter.
I
Usually
know.
we're talking like this.
I know,
over her,
and I
now
feel
we're
like
here.
sometimes I'm like a lunatic on the
that could still be
podcast.
true.
But I feel afraid of being like more of a lunatic.
Hey man, you always have a choice.
Always have a choice.
So, okay, today, Steve had an epiphany today, and Steve and I usually touch base with each other in between 3rd period and 4th period because I walk past his room when I'm going to my class. So he's like, hey, Jack. Actually, I said, hey, you got something for today? Because I didn't know if we did. And he's like, yeah, I got something. And then he's like,
well, after I told him about my class, but
that's true. We kind of got to talk about the funnies.
right.
What are you doing?
I don't know.
Did you just hear a popping sound? Are we okay?
Yeah, we're okay.
Did you pop something?
No, that was my clavicle. I'm okay.
Oh, that wasn't the microphone?
It was. I don't know what's going on. Okay, we're good. What now?
Okay, you told me in the hallway.
Jack, I had an epiphany, and I feel kind of funny saying this because I don't know if this would actually like resonate with anybody, but it resonated with myself. And the concept was helping students be successful. And you're like, boy, there's a toe-tapping topic for a podcast about education. But helping students be successful, let me explain. I was thinking about it in one of the rehearsals I was having with a group of students that we were consistently playing in the wrong key signature. Okay? And that means for all you non-musicians, we were playing the wrong notes.
And for music teachers, that means job security.
Job security, but music teachers, they're still playing the wrong notes. And I was just trying to, I think I phrased something like, guys, for us to sound really good on this tune, you have to be in control of all these notes. Like, you have to make sure these notes are ready to go. Okay. So it felt like I was putting more of the responsibility on them. That's their project that they're working on, and I'm there to help them complete their project. And I don't know, the way that I was thinking about it kind of like hit me. I almost got weepy. No, I didn't. No, but it did, like, I'm there to help them. And I've always believed I was there to help students. Okay. But to help them be successful at what they're doing and just assuming that they're trying to do their best, and we've kind of alluded to that philosophy before, assuming students are trying to do their best.
Right.
But helping them achieve their goals or helping them be as good as they can be.
And I'm thinking too, like, you're saying that this is like the first time you thought of it in this specific way, where maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I guess most teachers, when they are kind of going maybe on autopilot or just doing what they know to do, it's kind of they're leading the charge and they're saying, no, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to. It's very like teacher centric in helping the kids move forward instead of maybe what you were saying, which was like, I got 50 minutes a day with these kids. What do they need to be successful, and how can I give that to them?
Yes. Right. And yeah, really, I think you said something along those lines, kind of changing the perspective of it. So it's not me just telling them what to do because I want to get through this, but like having them along with me on the progress of the project, making sure they get to everything, and helping, I don't know, helping them be accountable is the right thing, but just the way that I was thinking about it really kind of affected me, and it felt like I was looking at things different, like helping students be successful, not telling students what to do, not giving them the answers all the time, but helping them, assuming that they want to become more successful, and then giving them the tools that they can do to be more successful.
Okay. And you've told me this before, and I think it's kind of freeing, is that you say when we teach a class, like, we can do whatever we want.
You can do whatever you want.
When we have the kids, I mean, as long as we are acting with integrity, we can teach them however we want. And I think when you start like teaching, there's like, you're trying to follow the status quo. Like, I think the phrase is, you teach like you were taught to teach. Is that right? Like, you teach what you know. You've seen your teachers that really made an impact on you, and you're trying to be them, and you're trying to kind of follow that path of just like, okay, here's what we do because this is what I did when I was a kid, or this is what I did when I was student teaching or in my methods classes, and you're following that status quo. But then I think like what you're talking about is like kind of like maybe an evolution, like your next step is that like, no, we could do this, and this will be a different experience for the kids, but in the long run it'll be better. And it might not look like what my teachers did or what I worked on when I was a student teacher, but this is different and hopefully better. Yes.
Right, and that is interesting to think back about on our teachers that we've had. I think maybe it was a sense in my mind of trying to be more student-centric. Not that I haven't been student-centric, but allow them to have the chance to be successful. I know that sounds like so basic, and it sounds like college education class 101, but that I'm not there just calling the shots to kind of express my impart my will on them, right? It's not just me going through this set of commands just so I can like hear myself talk and get through everything and how am I doing? But I'm doing this so they can get better control of the music they're playing and feel more successful. For example, in the groups that we have coming up in the next 2 weeks, being more successful with the music they're playing for Christmas Spectacular.
Right. And now I know you've done this before. Like you've kind of had this mentality for quite some time in teaching, but it is interesting to hear that like, even though you've already been doing it, that like something has changed in your perspective. So that's really cool, and I'm kind of curious. I mean, I don't know. I think that's fascinating that you kind of are looking at that differently now, even though you've kind of always done it.
Right. And I think that's maybe, you think about school, it's like teacher say, student do.
Yes.
Teacher say again, student do again. It's just like those.
It's
fun.
true.
But and that's like the game. But then it makes it sound like the teacher has like the everything.
Yeah.
And then like you're just giving them the information so they can like learn this information, but it's more of a, okay, this group of students is wanting to perform really well, and you've been brought in for these 40 minutes. What can you give them to be successful?
Right.
Like that, I guess that was maybe it. Like I just come in like fresh. Like I'm assuming these guys want to be really good.
Right.
So I'm going to give them all of this stuff, the expertise that I have, either how large or small that may be, and give them input so they can take that and then embrace that themselves and do it.
That's true, and that is interesting that you look at it. Well, it's not. It's the way it should be looked at. It's like you got X amount of minutes with these kids. What can we do in that time?
Right.
And of course, it's very easy for like a teacher to fall into the like, oh my gosh, it's only Tuesday, and like try and get the
Right.
groove. But like that's what it is. And the more that you think about it in that way, then it's like maybe a game is like a trivial term, but just like that's the challenge of teaching is like you got X amount of minutes. What can you do? And it's not really what can you do, but what can the students do
Yes, what can the students do?
by the end of the 40
Right.
minutes.
And
whatever.
with your guidance and you're leading them, but what can they get done?
Right. And our school right now, the administration is working with teachers for checks for understanding, and that's like our big goal for the year. And it doesn't matter. Well, you called it the difference between reality and fantasy, right? Fantasy is
Oh, I
what
did call it that.
you did. It's good, but it's true. It's
I
like
mean-
fantasy is like what you think the kids can do. Like, you know, you're teaching your lesson and you're ramming and jamming up front. You're pointing at the board and you got your iPad and you're drawing and you're talking, pointing at kids or whatever. That's like fantasy because it doesn't matter what you do. At the end of the lesson, it matters what can the kids do. Like, are they are they demonstrating their understanding of whatever concept you're teaching, right? And in our neck of the woods, it's very clear what the kids can do because their demonstration of understanding is playing.
Right.
Does it sound good? Is it the right notes and rhythms? Are they playing with the correct dynamics and phrasing? If not, they don't have it yet, and then we got to do it again. So you're taking it from like a new perspective. You're saying, I got 40 minutes, 50 minutes, whatever. What can we do in this time, and how can I be the most helpful for you to be successful? And that will probably look different from day to day.
Yes.
I was just thinking about this too. Like I was telling you, we had our first trumpet choir rehearsal. I got 15 trumpet players playing like a 5-part piece of music, and it's pretty challenging. And the answer for today of how can I best help them be successful, I think was, I'm running the show. First time reading the music, it's like we're a lot of pointing, a lot of saying, you do this,
You
do
were
this.
doing your mom arm all over the place.
I used that term today. I said, let me mom arm you right here. Here's how to count 6/8 with 16th notes because that's what we're rolling with. But then maybe by, halfway through our season or toward the end, I'm probably backing off a little bit and letting them do more. We've had the analogy of like giving kids keys to the car.
Right.
And in our concert band, I think one of the things that I'm most proud of our kids for is when they kind of take initiative in some of the rehearsals toward the end of our season.
Mhm.
And kids raise their hand and say, hey, can we try that again? Or, hey,
Right.
I'm not sure if this is lining up correctly with that. Can we
Right.
look at that? Now, if that were happening all the time with all the kids, that'd be like pretty painful. But you got a couple kids that's saying like,
Right.
can we check this out one more time? Like, I just want to make sure I'm doing this right. And they're like taking the initiative. And with the youngest, least experienced band, like that's a win that they're feeling some like accountability, but also
Yeah.
some ownership of what's going on in the room. And I think that lends itself back to what you're talking about is giving the kids the tools to be successful, not always being the sage on stage,
Sage on stage.
as they say. Right?
SOS.
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 Right?
That's true. That's true. Letting the students develop in a way that they can slowly start to take the reins
Yeah.
and then start to be more reflective on what they're doing and then give some feedback to themselves or even to you in an appropriate way
Right.
about what they hear or what they don't hear, what they see and what they don't see. And that's like some really good fruit right there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think we've both been involved in classroom or rehearsal situations. We've seen that work. And then we've also been on the other side, where there's not that and like very little.
Yeah.
And like maybe in a non-music class, like not a lot of verbal going on, not a lot of discussion,
Right.
not a lot of feedback, and it's hard to look for that. Are we there helping the students, get those 40 minutes as best as they can? What can we do with this? And sometimes that's more challenging given the dynamics of the class.
And that involves a lot of reflection, I think, on the teacher's part. Like at
Yes.
the end of class, like and I know you think about this stuff, and I try to too. It's just like, how did this go?
Yeah.
What could be better? What did the kids get out of it? And is there something that we're missing? And I was just thinking about this, that like my early days of teaching, I would think about that stuff constantly. And I just noticed recently, I've had like a couple days where I'm just like, I'm ramming and jamming in my class periods, and then I'm like not as reflective as much toward the end. Like, what could I have done differently? What should I be doing here? And I think coming back to that like every day, I need to do that more and just think of like, how are we best utilizing the time? Like, what do I need to do? Do the kids need to be sitting somewhere different? Does one light need to be on, 2 lights on? Do we need to be on iPads, off iPads? Do we need to talk more? Do we need to talk less? How do you think about that stuff?
Do you feel like you do, or you want to think more about that?
Both. I think I do think about it, but I want to think more about it. And I think the older I get and the longer I've taught, the less I know the answer.
That's depressing.
Smile for the real.
Right, but it's probably honest. That you
Because
feel
it
like
can work either way. Like I can make stuff work either way. I feel confident in that. Like, but I want to make sure that I'm keeping everybody engaged and I'm giving everybody some rigor with what they can chew on, and I just want to make sure that they're retaining it all. And I don't want to blow up the status quo too much, like thinking I'm like some, I don't know, just doing something too different that kind of scares me. But maybe that's what I need, or maybe it's what I don't need, and so I kind of get caught in this cycle. Like, what do I need? What do I need to do?
Well, so here's something to think of.
Oh, hit me. Let's go.
Okay, here's something to think about. Is that we have talked about before the concept of who's in your balcony. Okay, and the who's in your balcony concept would be like just in life that your idea that going through daily life, you're imagining that somebody's looking at you. And there's a balcony, and there's a number of people. And who are those people that you identify are looking at you, and what are they saying? What are they saying that they see you do, or what are they saying about what you say? And so as a teacher, in my balcony, wow, that was a loud fan. As a teacher in my balcony might be past teachers that I've had, or coworkers. And what would he or she think about what I said, or how I rehearsed that section, or how that sounds? And then, so that's the teaching balcony, and I've used that analogy with students, or that image. Also, just kind of who's in your balcony, and kind of talked more about it with self-esteem.
Yeah.
With kids that I've been with a longer time, like who's in your balcony, and thinking about that. But then I do think about this, then I'll ask you about yours, but I do think about this sometimes with within the classroom. Certain students in the classroom are like in my balcony. And thinking about the diversity of students that you have, whether it's a jazz band, whether it's a prep for college and careers class, whether it's a music theory class or a concert band, that there's a diversity of thought and skills in every class that we teach. And so how are those different levels of students receiving what I'm saying? And how are they approving or disapproving? And I think that's part of my mental process throughout the classes that I teach. So what about your balcony, or we don't have to get into specifics about who's in your balcony, although that would be quite revealing, but it would be like, what do you think of? Like, do you think I know we've talked about the balcony before.
We have.
And do you think about the balcony, or do you think, I mean, how does that manifest itself for you?
I do. Yeah. Yeah, you told me about the balcony thing like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I remember that. And I was like, oh, this is good. And if you're listening in a car, don't try and pause that because you might wreck. That's not safe. But if you're listening like in a place where you can pause it and rewind, you should listen to Steve talk about the balcony again, because I think this is like really valuable that like everybody should listen to and kind of sift through that in like your own personal way, maybe not even a professional way, but just like
Correct.
who are people in your life that you value their opinion and you want to hear their opinion. Because unfortunately, I'm going like touchy feely here, taking.
We're like turning into Dr. Phil.
Oh, it's time to hang up the mic. Okay. But you think about like who's in your balcony and who are the people you trust, because often, and this was like the situation I was getting into when you were telling me this, it's like you got to be careful who you let up there, right? You want people whose opinion you value, and sometimes people in your balcony are the ones you don't want up there. I might end up cutting this part. I don't even know. But my balcony as a teacher, that's really interesting. You brought up the like you have students in your balcony.
Mm-hmm.
I think I do too. And I think I've thought of that, maybe not in the balcony terms, but I've definitely thought of it as like students I can like look at and kind of gauge with their facial expressions.
Yep.
You think about that too?
Mm-hmm.
Like what's going well, or do I need to move on? Do I need to change this up? Like what's going on? And sometimes I worry like I take too much information in from that. I'm like, no, I can still do my own thing. But I do think about that a lot, like with kids in my balcony and what I'm doing. I do have like teachers in mind. I know if you're listening, you've definitely been observed at some point by an administrator who comes in with their laptop or whatever and taking notes. And that can be like a scary feeling. But I do like to think of like if I had random teachers come in and like observe me, like would they be into what's going on right now?
Mm-hmm.
And I do think of like a couple teachers or administrators, whoever, that like would do, like I kind of play through that in my mind. Like what would they think of this right now? Is this good, or do I need to change it up? So I definitely do think about the balcony when it comes to teaching. And even though we're all, wanting the best for our kids, all teachers arrive at that point in different ways. And thinking about in terms of getting the students successful, like what that looks like, and thinking about who's in the balcony saying, yeah, that's a good way to get successful, I think is kind of a good like process A, process B that kind of melds its way into the middle of success.
Gotcha. So that's great to think of. And sorry, I'm not really reflecting back to you, Jack.
It's okay, you never do.
But I think something that you hit on just a few minutes ago was like who's in your balcony and who do you allow to come into your balcony? Yeah. Obviously, that's a pretty big life skill. And I think, and if we go back to a couple episodes, we were talking about dynamic people that were very attractive, that you're like, I want to do what they're doing, that they've figured out how to deal with their balcony, or they've put the right people in their balcony. And I don't think that your balcony has to be like the yes man all the time saying, yeah, good job, you're awesome. I don't think that. I think there needs to be a diversity of expressions up there about what's happening.
Sure.
But I think that, insightful what you said too about thinking about your students, the students in the balcony, and about reading into too much what's going on.
Right.
And I guess that's only human, right?
It is. But I also, maybe this is like teacher-centric opinion of me, since I've never worked like another professional job, but I think in our career, we second guess ourselves constantly.
Yeah.
I don't know if that is everyone doing that? I don't know. But I think our job is pretty subjective. As we're saying, there's like 12 million different ways you can get your students successful. And there's there's a million other ways you can choose from to get there. And if you're like, and other jobs, if you're like crunching numbers, the numbers crunch the same way every day, right? Addition stays the same, but what we're doing is so subjective, and finding ways to get the student successful, even though that's like our 99% focus, that 1% is, am I being successful? Like, what am I doing? But that 1% that you're thinking about feels like 99. it's like you're trying to spin all these plates at once and you're so focused on the kids, but then you're looking back at yourself and like what you're doing and you're trying to reflect on it, but also pay attention to what's going on in the room. And it's just like, is this it? Am I getting the kids successful with what I'm doing with my time?
Do you find like through the day or through the 45-minute classes, since that's what we're in now, you're like, are you like talking to yourself going, this is going really well, or this is dragging on, or I'm moving too fast, or I am going painfully slow?
Constantly. You?
All the time.
All the time. I can't turn it off.
No, it's another deep thought is like the people that we have talked about and acknowledged that are saying these are the people that are worthy of kind of like emulating like their presence and their positivity. The people that seem to be on top of that game are the people that are the ones that are the most present. They're in that moment. So, and then those of us that have struggled with anxiety at different times, right? Anxiety is like experiencing something that's not necessarily there,
Right.
but it's ahead of you, something that you fear. So just being present in the classroom, which is almost hard to do because you got to think the next 4 downs, but there's also just the idea of being present in the class and being present to the students there. That's a lot.
We're getting like really deep today.
It's the microphones, I'm telling you.
It is. It does make it feel like a little more ethereal, and like we're like, okay, let's talk this through, Steve.
Yeah,
that's what it
that's
feels
good.
like. Do you think those people you were talking about, though, that we were hitting on like 2 episodes ago, do you think that even though they were present to you as the outsider looking in, do you think they were going through that same stuff on their own little mental circles?
Realistically, yes, but I want to think no. I think that they're just that's kind of how they roll. I think some people have an uncanny talent or skill that they can just be in the moment and they're taking care of things right there. It doesn't mean they don't plan or look ahead, but
okay, I might need to cut this later because I might not want to say this one, but do you know, we were talking about Tim Lautsnizer. We always bring him up. You know, we work with him. I've worked with him at certain events.
yes,
And he volunteers, and he's always making sure everyone has what they need. Like, that's his whole thing. And we've talked about this concept before, but when he was at that summer camp, he would serve people food, right?
Right.
When it was dinner time, he would not like eat in front of people. You know that?
no,
He wanted to. I think if he had he needed to eat, he would just like go away, scarf something down in like 2 minutes, and then come back and just like back to normal.
why is that?
I think it's what you're talking about with being present. Like, those people were present and they're showing you that they're there and they're with you. And maybe he thought that like him eating
Would be distracting.
would be distracting and saying, I need this, like my own physiological need. And he just wanted to hide that because he wanted people to feel like he was present.
Is that something he told you or something?
No, I think something I noticed. I just like, I've never seen that man chew food. Yeah, I've chewed food in front of him.
Serving others first. I mean, that whole that concept too.
But maybe just like wanting to be present. I don't know. I think that's fascinating.
That is fascinating.
Moments that you have had success in kind of taking a step back and thinking, how can I get these kids successful? Things you've done.
Right.
What do you got?
I think
That's good.
Many words not do trick. I realize that sometimes as being a classroom teacher or an ensemble leader, that the structure and the repetition and the expectations are obviously crucial. But I found so much success. Well, that sounds a little egotistical. I found moments of relief or improvement when that system kind of gets changed up. And it's kind of like rearranging your room as a kid. Like, that was a fun thing, rearranging your room. You had 4 walls, and you probably didn't have a huge room, and you had a limited amount of furniture, and there's only so many ways you could put the puzzle together.
Right.
And you enjoy the order of your room when you came into it. But boy, there was something fun when you redid your room, and then you cleaned it all up, and then you went out and you came back in, and you're like, oh, this is great.
That's true. You talk about settling the snow globe, that would be shaking it up.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's been some times that I enjoy kind of not doing the expected.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of heightens the awareness.
Yeah.
You were asking, like, how can this
Yeah.
make students be successful? It heightens the awareness and maybe doesn't let them get into the dullness of the structured, repetitious beginning of class.
Yes.
And something just totally different.
That's good.
And I found that the energy changes for me and for the students. And so that does help them be successful. And I feel like that helps them be more present. Because we know, going back last week to having Heidi Snyder with us, the regiment's a bad word to use, but the order and the predictability of your class, and doing that with 22 first graders is so important. But then there's also something kind of freeing and fun about just because we're going to do something different. And it does change the energy, which helps the students be more present, and then also helps the students be more successful because they're present.
Well done.
And plus, I get distracted pretty easy. So, yeah, I know. It's hard to believe as I'm
playing with
playing
a toy tooth
as
right
I'm
now.
playing with a toy tooth. But it does help me to be able to be more spontaneous.
You feel more free.
I feel more free.
That's true. It's true. And some days the kids and Mr. Peterson need a fence.
Yep.
A small fence that you just got to do your thing. But then
Right.
some days you need to get a bigger fence. Sometimes you need to go outside the fence.
Right. Go out in the field and just run.
That's true. And, something as an easy example, I think that works for us is that, like, you like to blow up seating charts some days.
Yep.
And that's kind of a fun time. The jazz band kids, it doesn't work as well in that class because you can't hear the saxophones. But with like our concert band, they like to go, like, you would blow them up so they're like totally by themselves. And I remember there was a day last year you did a completely improvised lesson, shocking, on like 25 minutes of like listening and just like listen to your neighbor. We played one note for like 25 minutes, and it was like, okay, you play. Okay, you play. Can you hear them? No. Then you need to play softer. Okay, now you. Okay, now add. And I swear the kids were like about to fall out of their chairs because they were sitting so close to you, like on the edge of their seat.
And they were all over the room.
All over the room.
Like in the corners and up steps and
Yep.
down steps and like facing different ways. And so it was the idea that they were not sitting like 18 inches apart.
Right. And that it totally changes up the dynamic, and it makes them kind of like not on edge in a negative way, but just like alert because something's different. And they're like, I can't fake my way through this. I need to pay attention. Like, what's
Right.
going on? And usually it's more out of like a curious nature than like a painful, like, oh, I have to do this. Like,
Right.
what's going on? What are we doing? No, it's good. That's good.
Changing up the plan, but also that goes back to student success.
Yes.
But do you like to do that? Like, do you think of like sometimes like maybe you go into a class like here we are in the end of November, you're like, oh, I gotta do this. Like you're thinking about the way you're not like going about the kids, but you're just thinking about the structure of the class. Like, how can I change it up? Or
I do.
like, do I need to go into super soft mode or super loud mode, or do I need to go into frenetic mode? Or
No, I do think about that. A very minimal example today that was like very happenstance. Coming to music theory, and music theory is in the choir room right now. The choir is working on choreography for a Christmas show, so that meant there were no chairs out as it came in. And I have noticed that kids don't adapt their environment to what they're used to. They just adapt to the environment, and they just all sat on the floor.
did you let them sit on the floor?
I just kind of they were like just sitting on the floor and they were talking. And I was like, "Do you guys want to get? There's chairs right there. Do you want to get chairs?" They're like, "No, we're fine." And it was kind of like a different energy in the class
Yeah,
because there was no chairs.
right.
They're just like on the floor, and it felt kind of like a first grade style class when everyone sit on the floor. But it was also, it was kind of like a club. It didn't feel like class because there weren't chairs. So that was interesting. Something that we've been taught as teachers is that you have to incorporate movement in your lessons. And I've started to do that more, especially with the high school kids. And we used to be on 84-minute classes, and if you sit still for 84 minutes, it's painful.
You get bed sores. That's why we stopped doing that class schedule, because kids were getting bed sores. I mean,
can I go to the nurse? Oh, God. Yes.
okay, the whole class is going to the nurse. What's the problem? Bed sores.
Block schedule.
Block schedule did it again.
So we had to find ways to get up and move. And our principal at that time was like very adamant that like you got to have like at least 3 transitions. Like I remember her talking about that. Like you got to move.
Yeah.
And if you're in a class like marching band, check, easy, got it, cool.
Can we sit down?
Yeah, can we please? It's cool.
Right.
But in a class like music theory or concert band,
yes.
if that's 84 minutes, you gotta find time to move, and that's helping the students be successful. And in concert band, we would do sectionals in a different location, so we literally just moved from one class to another, and that kind of worked.
Yep.
But in music theory, I've had to kind of get creative with some.
Yeah, so what do you do in
things.
that?
This is like very music theory centric, but we were working on triads, right? Triad, add 3 notes, 3-note chord,
Ooh.
and we call these chords triads, and they have 3 notes in them. They're called the root, the third, and the 5th. And sometimes, this is a little music theory lesson, I'm already geeking out, this is fun. Sometimes they're not always in what we call root position, where the root's on the bottom. Sometimes the 3rd might be on the bottom, and we call that first inversion. Sometimes the 5th might be on the bottom, and we call that second inversion. So I assign kids roots, 3rds, 5ths.
Okay.
And we have like stairs
You have stairs in that
room. They're like tiers. So it was kind of like a human body race to who can get into the correct inversion the quickest.
Oh, that's cool.
So I had like, root position, go. And then the root would run to the bottom of the stairs, and then 3rd, 5th. So, second inversion, go. And then the 5th runs to the bottom, so we're kind of playing like leapfrog almost.
Right.
And they're running through. And it's
Did
just...
that help?
Yeah, and I think it's like another way too. It's like you're not just writing down on a piece of paper like what the triads look like. It's like you're physically doing what the triads look like when they're inverted. And then I told you like we played musical chairs in there with key signatures. So I was shuffling through like key signatures on the board, and key signatures are just like names of notes, right? So are we in C major, are we in D major, F major? So there's 12 different ones, 15 if you're like that person. There's 15 different ones cycling through. That was a music theory joke for if anyone was listening. 15 keys cycling through, and I said, okay, when you see F major, that's like when the music stops, like go find a chair. So I'm cycling through, F major comes up, and kids are like fighting for chairs.
Wonderful.
And our principal walked in at that point too.
Really?
Yeah, he did. He was laughing, which I think was a good sign.
That's good.
So, yeah. So stuff like that. That's like if you're just like a random person looking in, you're seeing like a bunch of kids in class playing musical chairs. It might not look like you're being very productive, but like they're demonstrating their understanding for what's going on, one way or another. And same thing with running around with that like little triad exercise. That idea, that too.
Well, and that something like that is memorable for the students.
Yes. Yeah, I think so.
And seeing themselves on the bottom step or the middle tier or the top step, right?
Yes. And sometimes I like doing that stuff, and I like not telling them what we're doing right away. I have this adult rose class, and these kids I know less because I haven't had them as long in the band program or whatever. And sometimes I'll just tell them, okay, you stand here, you stand here, you stand here. And the room's just kind of silent as I'm still doing. And so they're kind of like, what are we doing? And the energy kind of changes.
Sure.
And then they're kind of like more alert, they're more awake, as if I would have done it the opposite way and said, okay, we're going to do like a group activity, this group is going to be, then it's like a different,
So what
it's
if
stale.
you took student 1, 2, and 3 and you put them in different parts of the room, and then what would be the follow-up to that, or the next step?
I think it was like a speed dating activity, but it wasn't it wasn't through like social stuff. It was like with what the content we were doing was. We were just like talking through with partners. And I've done stuff like that, like, and I know you have too, like order yourselves by height or by birthday.
Yes.
But usually the trick is like, you can't talk. You got to do it silently or whatever. And then it's like a 30-minute movement activity that's different, but like is keeping kids engaged. So those are like two things, a couple things, like especially with movement, that I've done in my classes to kind of keep things fresh and help the students be successful and kind of give them the keys to the car for a second, so to speak. And I'm kind of hands off, and not in a lazy way, but in an intentional way. I'm hands off.
That's cool, and that goes back to step one today of thinking about giving the students more license to be successful and having them help lead the charge.
And once you kind of get that culture in your classes, that's kind of a game changer.
Yeah.
And that's one of the downsides about our band that we teach. Since we teach the youngest band, most of the kids, by the time they're done, move on to the next band. So we do have some kids that roll over from year to year, but it's hard to keep. I think we do have the culture in there. Like, I think that does stick around from year to year, but sometimes I wish that we had more flow in that sense. So because you and I have our systems of what we think the culture should be, leadership and temperature and everything. And it'd be cool to kind of see where that could go if we kept giving the kids the keys.
Right. And have them do more and have us do less.
Yeah, that would be, and again, not from like a lazy perspective, but just totally like intentional.
No.
And I started having some in marching band. I started having the kids leading warm-ups
I
this
remember
year,
you said that. Yeah.
helping them be successful, which is many reasons. One, you and I both know the feeling of walking out to the marching band field when you have to take attendance and you have 3 handouts you need to pass out, and you have the away school fight song you need to pass out as well, and you know that there are going to be 6 athletes that are coming in late, and oh, it's raining, and oh wait, now we have to go inside. Hey, seniors,
F concert.
run
So
it.
you did that. I think that's a great idea.
And this was the first year I did it, so there were always some kind of like hiccups and things to do, but that I did take like a scaffolded approach to it with the seniors leading it. Like in the first part of the season, it was, we're gonna just do 3 notes with me, 3 Fs. Ready? Go.
Okay.
Stop. Go again. Stop. Last one. Go. That was it. And then as the season went on, they would do like 1 or 2 more exercises with them, and then by the end, I think we were doing 3 or 4.
And they would count it off.
They would count it off, and they'd lead it where they were in the arc. They wouldn't do it. They'd start up front, and then after the first couple notes, they go into the arc.
And did you feel like the students responded well? Like over time, that became a good thing?
Absolutely. And I told the seniors too, I said, when you're ready to go, like our rehearsal starts at 6. So at 5:59, go stand up in front of them and just put your hands, like cross your hands in what we call our standby position. Yeah. And that's kind of like signaling to everybody else we're ready to go. Like I told the seniors, like, don't shush them. Don't try and like cut them off from what they're doing. Just wait. And they always were really respectful about just like going here. And I told the seniors, like, don't start anything until it's like completely silent and you have all eyes on you. And they were really good about that. And it was always silent. And it's a different kind of level of respect when your peer is teaching you than if your teacher's teaching you.
It's true.
Because if you like blow off your teacher, it's like, whatever. I'm not personally offended that you blew me off because you're a student.
Right.
But if you blow off your peer's like, hey, what the heck?
Come on, man.
Yeah. So you're not going to do that. So it's a different energy. And I'm hoping that can be a system that keeps building on itself, and the seniors like want to do that, and they always did. Like they were into it. But that changes up the energy when your student leads something in the class rather than you. And we've done that maybe a few times in concert band, not as many because there are mostly younger kids in there. But I think stuff like that could be a nice change of pace. Like, okay, you lead warm-ups today.
Right.
What do you got? Let's do it.
Right. Let's build in a culture.
Oh, and Dr. Tim said, back to Dr. Tim, that anything the students can do that saves the teacher time to do tasks only the teacher can do is worth it.
Gotcha.
And we know how long attendance can take in marching band some days.
Yes, it takes.
It takes some time.
I'm still finishing up marching band attendance. We've been out of marching band for a month.
It's real. It's
oh
real.
My gosh.
Yeah. But I do think this is like a really good concept to think about, especially like for teachers listening in the middle of their school year, where you've done the same thing and you're in your flow, that it might be time to change something up.
Right. It might be time to rearrange the furniture. Of course, changing the physical location.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, what if we just turn? I'm just looking at this classroom. I could turn this classroom around.
Right.
It would totally freak out the kids.
Or have them turn 90 degrees.
That's all it takes. All it takes to make the kids go, "What is going on?"
Right.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Okay, so try that. If you're out there and you're an educator.
Or if you're a business leader, switch everyone's desks around. Change their cubicle.
Change the lock on the door.
Change the lock.
If you're married, change the lock on the door. Put your son's furniture in the garage. See how they do. Okay.
That's just
only
great.
drive backwards. Something like that.
There you go. Michael, it's a lake. Okay. Yeah. Got anything else on this?
Golly. No, I don't. No, I have a rehearsal this evening, so my mind has been going there at different times. Then I'm like really hungry.
Steve, you gotta be present, man. You just talked about that. He's already thinking about his jelly move that he's putting in the jazz band rehearsal tonight. Steve's actually a really talented choreographer. If you ever need like some really good choreography, call up Stevie P. Call up Steve Peterson.
That's it.
He's got you.
I got two moves, and same moves we've been doing for 20 years.
Hey,
so.
They work then, they work now. That's great.
Same thing, but I wasn't present all the time.
Did I know?
I don't know, Jack. Did you? Did you, Jack?
Well, you responded appropriately. You made eye contact. You did you checked those boxes. You're okay.
Oh.
I'm also really hungry, man. Well, it's getting late for us. We don't usually record this late.
I know it's almost 5:30, but
I
it's
had to
probably
get my hair
dark.
cut yesterday, so we rescheduled our normal recording
Jack
time.
talking about changing it up. Jack changed it up. Because usually I'm like, okay, get to school on Monday, do Chops podcast, and Jack's like, ixnay on the oddcast pay.
On the Ops J.
Ops J. So we're gonna do that because Jack's got the fresh cut, which is fire. I got my haircut too, but I did it on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but I find too that I get like, what period is that? Fourth period. Fourth period is right before lunch.
That's when you lose your mojo.
I lose my mojo about 20 minutes into the day. That's all I've got, kids. Okay. Like halfway through that last piano class, fourth period, I start getting hungry. Then it's just like, and then they all have lunch. I know they all have lunch, and it's just like.
Okay, we got students listening right now. Okay, students listening at Concord, come bring Mr. Peterson a snack right around 11:40.
Gosh, that's what I need. It's tough. It is tough, and it's time to go. I get so hungry, but I don't know. I've been eating the same thing. I eat in the morning. I do oatmeal.
Same thing.
I was going to do a smoothie this morning, but it was so cold.
It was cold.
It's
windy.
And we have this thing called a furnace and windows, and it just feels, and the temperature was still the same in the house, but it just feels different.
You look outside, and it's dark, and it's snowy, and it's windy.
I'm like, I got to shovel off or brush off my car again. But then, so I couldn't do a smoothie this morning because I had to do oatmeal.
No way.
I had to do oatmeal and like 2 cups of coffee, and I just like poured it down my shirt because I was like so cold. I was like, I didn't even take a shower. I was just like, I got third-degree burns on my chest. It's bad, but that's where I am.
Man, you smell like coffee.
Yep, you have no idea.
Yes, I do.
Just call me Starbucks.
Yeah. It's getting cold. It's getting real. It's all happening. 4 weeks of school.
Okay, well, see, today is November 28th, and then in a couple weeks we're going to have a guest out of state.
You know him and you love him.
Oh,
to be revealed on the Instagram reel we'll release before that week,
and that's going to be in a couple weeks. So that'll be fun. So
that's going to be good.
Next week we'll also do Just the two of us. And like
Just
some,
the two of us.
Yeah, just the two of us.
Castles in the sky. Okay. Yeah, just the two of us next week, and then we have a guest, and then we're probably gonna have to take a little hiatus around the holidays, unless
Yeah.
we're like really driven. And I don't know though. I'm going not to
We could
drink
do
some hot cocoa.
we could do on location, like at a coffee shop or something.
live show.
Yeah,
Live show at the Martin Starbucks over here in Elkhart and Dunlap.
that'd be good.
That'd be fun. It'd be loud. It'd be really echoey. And we'd have just enough audience to fill those 2 couches up there. So
Easily.
easily. Yeah. Okay. Here's what you need to do, listeners. Follow at chops_podcast on Instagram and on TikTok and on YouTube. If you're watching this, like you're watching it, like it's video, thanks for checking out our videos. If you're listening to it, consider checking out the videos on YouTube and on Spotify. We have post the video podcast there as well. Write us a review, even if you hate it. Write us a review. We can take it. We're teachers. We're high school teachers. We can definitely take it.
You can take it.
And give us a rating. Again, we can take it if you don't like it, but rate us. Help us
Yeah.
out.
Help us out.
That's good. I think that's all the plugs we got. I think that's all we got for right now. So Steve's gonna go teach kids the grapevine.
I'm the nerdy grapevine.
You are doing it. I
Yeah.
told the kids you're gonna do the grapevine. I said left over right. Get it going.
Yep. Nerdy grapevine, which is step together.
Step. Oh yeah. They're gonna play really loud.
Yeah,
Just
it's,
loud
it's
enough.
just what we do.
It's
No,
just
actually,
what we do.
this year we were actually playing dynamics. It's a combined jazz band tune. Well, I kind of say
Actually
that.
playing dynamics.
Well, it's funny because it's like both jazz bands combined, and we do like a silly number in like wacky costumes, and it's kind of over the top, just zany and like it's like jazz theater on stage.
It is.
They're like in the aisles and they're like all lit up like with lights and doing crazy stuff. And today like we're doing like a little conga line and a 1950s rock and roll thing, and so it does get pretty loud, but it's kind of what we do. But so I think we're gonna change it up tonight. Yeah, change it up.
You're gonna play piano.
Play piano. It's gonna be so soft.
Kids, we're gonna shh, calm
So-
down. Trumpets, calm down.
Calm down, trumpets.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Can't wait to see it.
So this is the end of the time.
This is the end. We're peacing out. I'm gonna go eat some dinner. You're gonna
I'm
go
good.
teach some grapevines and eat
Okay.
some dinner. Okay, so for Jack Hinkle,
And Steve Peterson.
see ya.
Bye.